This is a scene from Hirokazu Koreeda's debut feature, Maborosi. It's a moment that has stuck with me since I first watched the film, and the scene is, on the surface, very simple. It's just a woman observing a passing funeral procession, but it's a scene that, to me, best exemplifies the sheer beauty of Koreeda's work, because it takes something so seemingly mundane and infuses it with so much emotion and meaning. This is exactly why I adore the work of Hirokazu Koreeda, because of scenes like that from Maborosi, or a family sharing a meal together and still walking, or in Shoplifters, a band of outsiders taking a trip to the beach, and in Broker, Koreeda's latest film, he once again provides us so many impactful moments, just like those. With Broker, though, he tells the story of two men that make a living stealing abandoned infants from baby boxes and selling them to couples who can't have children of their own. A young mother, after giving up her own child, has a sudden change of heart and confronts the duo in hopes of getting the baby back. However, the men end up taking this mother under their wing and convince her to join them on a road trip to help sell her baby, under the notion that this is what's best for her child. From that unconventional premise, there is a lot you could assume about this film and how it navigates its potentially touchy subject matter. But because you're in the careful, empathetic hands of Hirokazu Koreeda, you need to throw all of your preconceived notions out of the window, because Broker is a deeply sensitive, humanistic film about individuals on the outskirts of society who, by discovering a connective tissue that exists between them, form a makeshift family. This is of course very familiar ground for Koreeda, because he has always been fascinated with studying the constructs of a family, whether said family is connected by blood or not. And Broker is definitely a continuation of those themes and ideas, but the film is by no means a regurgitation of everything he's done so brilliantly throughout his career, as he continues to be a master at taking the emotional foundation of your typical family drama and spinning them on their head, turning them into understated and emotionally piercing works that aren't as black and white as most contemporary familial portraits are. And here, he makes a film that is much more complex than it might seem at first glance, exploring the desire to belong, the finiteness of being, and the daunting nature of raising a child in a cruel world, all under the guise of this baby smuggling plot. It's all so very moving and resonant, even when the film's core narrative would tell you otherwise. But I think the reason Broker works so well is that Koreeda has such immense sympathy for his characters. These are individuals that are broken, lonely, flawed, and thrown to the wayside by the world, and in moments of sheer desperation, they make colossal mistakes. Koreeda allows his characters to make those mistakes, but then lets them gradually reveal themselves throughout the course of the film, so that by the conclusion, we see them in full, flaws and all. He's a rare filmmaker in that he doesn't cast judgment on his characters whatsoever. He never has, and I don't think he ever will. He always embraces their flaws and is able to tell beautiful, true-to-life stories because of it. But Broker doesn't solely work on the shoulders of Koreeda. He also has an incredible ensemble cast guiding the audience every step of the way and helping us buy into the many emotions on screen. You of course have the always terrific Song Kang-ho, who just by his minute facial expressions communicates so much, and his performance is only heightened by his charm and adept comedic timing. Alongside him, you will find a deeply moving performance from IU, who is a true revelation as the emotional core of the film. She plays this young mother with so much nuance and never under or oversells any moment. She has one scene in particular on a Ferris wheel that crushed me, and it's a moment that is bound to leave a big impact on the audience. Everyone else in the ensemble is equally fantastic, but those two central performances are just brilliant and will go down as some of the best work of the entire year. Some viewers might find that, on the surface, their characters in the film are thinly developed in some ways, but when you closely observe these brilliant performances, so much is communicated with so little. Koreeda has always had this very particular way of presenting the interiority of his characters without ever succumbing to constant outward expressions of emotion. He's instead able to communicate his character's feelings through every aspect of the filmmaking, letting the light and sound key us directly into the character's feelings, and I think that resonates far greater than any scene of someone sobbing is able to accomplish. Sure, there are points in Broker that do get pretty close to being overly sentimental, and there are also moments that Koreeda doesn't let play out in as much silence as I'd like, but I think Koreeda keeps the strokes of melodrama just slim enough as to not get anything too cloying. I can't imagine how difficult it was to strike that perfect balance, but what I think helps balance that melodrama out in a way is the comical crime caper element of the story. Because you remember that, yes, these people are indeed committing a crime, And so, as the risk and deftly plotted law enforcement evasions ramp up, Koreeda can also peel back more and more of the emotional layers as well. This genre element of the film is undoubtedly the least captivating piece of the narrative for me, but it does complement the tender drama well and allows for some lovely farcical misadventures along the way, even when it can all feel relatively predictable. Overall, in lesser hands, Broker easily could have been hackneyed and formulaic, but with Koreeda's gentle touch, we instead get a heartwarming, funny, and ultimately moving film. One that is not his crowning achievement by any means. That spot is reserved for Still Walking in my eyes, but one that, for what it's worth, will be his most accessible film to date. Not only because it shines a light on some timely issues such as abortion and women's bodily autonomy, but also because it asks these very complex questions without ever being too oblique, and takes its time to tell its story without ever moving too slow for mainstream audiences, like some of his earlier work did. But I'm just happy that after the painfully middling The Truth, we have Broker to remind us why Koreeda is one of the best filmmakers working today, and it's a joy to see him back on top, making some of the most beautifully soul-crushing films out there. I hope you all will be just as moved by this movie as I was. It's a pretty damn special one.